Michigan State University through partner with Larry. They've done a study. They did a study last year. So we have the data. We know where the gaps are in the county. And so now we're just working toward pushing for filling those gaps with some real relevant firms. So I want to let you know about that. And so I don't want to pause up everything. I'm going to toss it over to Senator Cherry, and then we'll just kind of go back and forth, and we'll answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Commissioner. And it's a good turnout today. Want to take a moment to talk about maybe a few things that have been happening at the state level, things that we've either done as a full legislature or that we're working on in my office. The biggest thing that's happened recently is in relation to the state budget. So I do serve on appropriations, and so that's taken up a significant amount of time this fall. Typically our state budget operates on an October 1st fiscal year, so that's when the budget year starts. Typically we have gotten a budget done by July. This year was a little bit different, although in the Senate we passed out our budget in May. The House didn't pass their version of it out until August, so we really had to negotiate between the two chambers in the governor's office until September. So the process was very different this year. Now the budget can be very complicated, but I'm just going to maybe highlight a few of the most significant things that were either in the budget or changed. Number one, there's probably two major investments in this budget that folks will see. The first one is a very significant investment in roads, an increase of about $1 billion in road funding. A large portion of that was done through as of right now, it changes over in January. When you fill up at the pump, there's a gas tax, and then you also pay 6% sales tax. Starting very soon, that 6% will no longer be there, but it will be replaced with a gas tax. So roughly what equivalent that would be on a per gallon basis. So there's no net increase on the pump, but those dollars are now going to the roads, with all the gas tax constitutionally goes to roads. Over time, there's also going to be an earmark on our corporate income tax that will increase, and that plus we enacted a wholesale tax on marijuana. The corporate income tax earmark and the wholesale tax on marijuana will be going to local roads. So going to your county road commissions, your cities, and your villages to do roads that they are responsible for, as opposed to state roads. The other big investment was $250 million that was set aside to do expansion of the RX Kids program. So on a statewide basis. So RX Kids started in Flint a few years ago. We did a pilot there. And what that does is provide support to pregnant mothers and babies, financial support. What we've found is, and it's really an initiative pioneered by Dr. Mota, those early moments of life in utero, that first year of life, is super critical for all of us. That's when you have the greatest amount of brain development and all sorts of physical development. And poverty impacts that in a severely negative way. And so we piloted in Flint a few years ago RX Kids, which you can sign up for when you're a mother. You get $1,500 when you're pregnant, and then through the first year of your child's life, there's $500 that you get to help you pay for all the expenses that exist with raising a child. And I'm guessing there's a good number of folks who have raised children here. They are, as a parent of two, they are expensive. That was started a few years ago, so we're starting to get data back right now. And part of this program is studying to see, are we actually having impacts on what we want to have, which is, are we improving the outcomes for those kids? In just a few years, you can measure some things that are primarily health-based. But over time, we'll be able to track to see, are we having impacts on other things that we care about, which is like achievement in school, readiness in school, those type of things. But the initial things that we've tracked so far, we're seeing decreases in infant mortality, decreases in maternal complications, decreases in preterm births, all these various things that impact an individual's trajectory early in life, or whether or not, we're talking infant mortality, they do it. And so they're tracking these, and based on the improved health outcomes alone, what they're finding is the reductions in medical costs alone cover the cost of the program. So that's been very exciting. The money that we got set aside in the state budget is to work towards expansion. We had expanded a little bit in the previous budget, so it got instituted Eastern UP, Clare County, and now we got dollars to expand other places. It's taking a while, but you want to test the concept out, make sure that it's being effective before you do something. Now, we were able to preserve a number of different things in the state budget. School funding was preserved, school meals was preserved, and universal pre-K access was preserved. Those are very important to myself in our caucus. And we also were able to preserve funding for the Medicaid program. The rest of the budgets saw some level of reductions. Most of the rest of the budgets saw some level of reductions. I cover MDR and DNR budgets. That's the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Natural Resources. And there were reductions within those budgets that we had between the House and ourselves and the administration. That's a basic, high level, what happened on the budget this year. When it comes to other issues that we're working on, this week we're going to be having a hearing in labor, where we're going to be talking to the director of the Unemployment Insurance Agency, and then also folks, or maybe you folks have heard about this repayment of unemployment. There were excess payments that went out during COVID, and so the agency has sent out letters seeking repayment on funds that had gone out, and so we're trying to work through that with the Unemployment Insurance Agency and making sure, while we're keeping the state whole, we also don't want to be putting too much of a burden on folks who didn't know that they had overpaid. We have been continuing to work on the manufactured housing issue. We've been negotiating on that all year. This is an item that I worked on for a number of years. Started out with some folks who came to me in Swartz Creek who had their communities purchased by an out-of-state private equity firm. We got close in a previous session. Unfortunately, didn't get across the line, and we're trying to see if we can get something done to protect consumers, residents, and manufactured housing parks this year. I think we're on the right trajectory, but we will continue to work on that. So that's a couple of things that either happened or that we're working on right now. And
Yeah, we can do that. What questions do you have about anything that Senator Cherry? Yes.
Yeah, at the very beginning, you talked about a gas tax, and I feel like maybe I didn't hear you correctly. Something about getting rid of that and basing it on how much, that to me seems a little wishy-washy. Could you repeat that, because maybe I misunderstood?
Yeah. So prior to the changes that we made, folks pay 41 cent gas tax and a 6% sales tax on gas. The 6% sales tax is being removed from gas, and we're adding on, I want to say it's 10 cents. Let me think about that.
Right, because you didn't give a price, so.
No, it's a 15 cent. We're adding on 15 cents, I believe it is, to the gas tax.
A gallon?
Yeah, but we're removing the 6%. So it nets out even. Does that make sense?
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Doesn't this change the base of people that we are billing for the roads? 6% sales tax. Everybody that buys something in the state pays into this 6% sales tax. And the more money you got and the more you buy, the more you pay in. Now this 10 cents onto your already, how many times have you raised the taxes in the last 10 years to get this to 41 cents a gallon? And then how much of this money is going to an oversight commission for these scabby road repairs that are going all over town? Because I've been looking at the 475 repair, and I can't believe, according to the National Institute of Highway Safety, something along them lines, they got a set of like specs for what qualifies for, you know, an interstate highway, and it's got to be built to X amount of specs and quality. And when I see scabby work, that's going to have to be redone soon. So that's how you're going to absorb the rest of this money. And then the rest of the repairs going on around in Genesee County all seem to be about an inch thick. They're around my shop they're trying to steal. I thought that was great. They did a bunch of scabby repairs to overtax me. Beautiful. And I do run a small business. We buy a lot of gas. So well, isn't this like a rather hard inconvenience to small business owners? Aren't we supposed to be attracting business owners to this area to like help with work and whatnot?
Sure. So,
That was a lot.
oh, sorry, I just spoke earlier, it was 27. So what,
It's going up in the morning.
so the 6% was removed, okay? The 20 cent was added. That gas tax, the price, the price of gas changes, right? But if you're a little over $3, that's about even.
It was 15 cents a gallon comparable to
So
6% sales tax.
Net effect on the state budget
Calculator.
is money is reduced, sales tax revenue is reduced, and gas tax revenue increases.
I can't wait to ask my question.
The fiscal agency say it's gonna be about the same
There's no
amount.
good answer to my
that's being
question, you know
taken
that,
in.
right?
Right.
It's just going different places. So, it's not a net increase on that. Where you had a net tax increase was on marijuana. So, marijuana today has a 10% tax at sale. There is what we call wholesale tax, which is paid between wholesale,
It's more than
like not right at the cash register when the consumer's buying it, sales tax. That was 24% wholesale tax added to marijuana.
Wait till we get to the health of the babies.
For comparison purposes, we have a 32% wholesale tobacco tax. So it does come out a little bit higher, 2% higher than tobacco, but it's roughly similar to what we have on tobacco and alcohol in terms of wholesale tax. So the gas tax changed, but because we removed the 6% sales tax, it's roughly equivalent, so there's no net increase when it comes to what you pay.
Oh, there is.
Now, in terms
He didn't have an
of
answer for my question, if you're not aware.
money, a portion of that does go to state roads. The majority of the funding coming from the changes in transportation is going to end up going to local units of government, whether that's county road commissions, cities, or villages. It's kind of maybe diving into the weeds a little bit, but there's that net increase that's going to what we call PA 51, which is how you distribute gas tax revenue. So there's about $1 billion extra dollars going through PA 51. At the same time, there used to be an income tax earmark that got switched off for a CIT earmark. That income tax earmark went through PA 51. PA 51 says about 40% goes to the state for state roads, 40% goes to counties for township and county roads, and then 20% goes to, and I'm rounding numbers here, 20% goes to cities for cities and villages.
It's extra money.
The new money starts at 688 million earmarked for CIT, and then the marijuana tax. That all goes through a different formula that sends more of it to locals. So state roads get a little bit more. In the end, when you run all the numbers, state roads get a little bit more. Vast majority of the dollars are going to counties, cities, and villages. I hope that answers the question.
I had a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I want to know what's going on with the poisoning of water through these mega sites. I'm hearing how they're taking round about 55 million gallons a day out of our Great Lakes that's going to be coming in here for computer chip and battery rinse off and so on and so forth. And then you're treating that water to where it's supposedly good again. And then you're releasing it back into the stream. And then you're pulling an additional 55 million gallons. If it was cleaned and treated properly, why don't you just reuse the same 55?
On that note, will that help take the PFAS out of the ground in the water and make sure our babies are healthy and developing safely in their first year of life?
Because PFAS chemicals are forever, and I actually talked to a guy who deals with that, and he said there's no true way to ever get them out. Anybody that tells you anything different don't understand it.
Sounds just like the chemicals from the battery plant.
That's what it is.
So, I really admire Senator Cherry. He has a difficult job at the state level. That's why I'm super comfortable just being at the county level personally. But I respect everything that Senator Cherry brings to the table, and I thank him for bringing back all this information. I'm especially excited about the RX Kids piece of the budget, because I think that's gonna be a game changer. And I heard you talk about, doing something for the community. I wrote down how we can attract businesses to our community. So those are issues that we're working on. I think, Senator Cherry has a flyer on the table over there, and my flyer is over there too, to talk about the priorities that we see in our roles and working with every day. You talk about PFAS, and I know just a little bit about PFAS.
Pretty
I
enormous
think
problem.
What you said is true. We don't know. It does last forever. And it's kind of like...
It's in every body of every person. It's stuck there forever. It's in your cells.
We didn't really, we're learning as we go. And lots of research institutions are doing more and more research on PFAS. I've heard that there are some good uses, but I've heard that mostly it's bad.
I talked to an engineer who deals with the PFAS.
I'm going to turn it over to and give Senator Cherry a chance to
Goes in
respond
your
to some
I'm
of the
not
things
gonna
you
rip
said
him
about
out.
the
Hold on, let me do it, please. All right.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time narrowing down the question because it kind of went on there. But what I do remember is you asked about where water comes from megasites. The megasites themselves don't use water, right? It's ultimately different industries that potentially could use water.
No, the mega sites use it. It's on their plan. It states it.
Sir, you asked a question, I'm going to answer it. We're also going to give other people a chance to answer. It's not going to be just you asking me questions. There's a lot of folks here. We got everyone to talk.
I just want an answer.
So if you have a data center, they potentially use water for cooling purposes. If you have a semiconductor manufacturer, they use water in the semiconductor manufacturing process.
To
And
rinse
then,
off the chemicals.
if you have other manufacturers, they tend to use less water than like a semiconductor manufacturer. So, question is, that I have heard from many folks is like, if you have a semiconductor manufacturer that comes into the community, where would the water come from for that? Now, in other places, they may use groundwater or what have you. In the instance of Genesee County, if we were to have a semiconductor manufacturer, we have a Carignan pipeline that can bring in water to utilize there.
From Lake
It would
Huron.
not be coming from groundwater. So I think that answers the question, but if folks have other questions, yeah, we have this table and then the next table. Yeah.
Did you say the groundwater, that 55 million gallons of water is coming from the groundwater?
No. I'm saying in other locations where they don't have access to fresh water, they oftentimes use that. In Genesee County, we have the Grand County Pipeline, which is, and maybe I just said that, I didn't explain maybe what that is. So,
I'm sending
a
this
few
video.
years ago, our county built a water pipeline to Lake Huron. And so it runs from, I want to say it's just north of Fort Huron into Genesee County. So actually the water, unless you're in the city of Flint, and I think Flint does their own treatment, right? Unless you're in the city of Flint or Fenton, your water is coming from Lake Huron, is being treated at a plant that's just across the Lapeer County line, being distributed across, throughout Genesee County. The pipeline that they built to Lake Huron is much higher capacity than what the county uses. And so if we were to have a semiconductor manufacturer, the expectations they would build additional infrastructure from the existing pipeline to wherever that might be.
Well, in the Riverside area,
Yeah.
it's all wells. They're
Sure, it would have to pull.
We all have wells.
Yeah,
And they're all going to be ruined with all this groundwater.
Yep.
It's gonna be coming-
100%.
They're bringing it in from Lake Huron, but all the crap and stuff is going to go down in the ground and into our wells.
Yep.
How are we
Yeah.
going to take care of that?
so my understanding is that if there were to be a semiconductor manufacturer, there would be water treatment built on site.
To treat our well water?
No, to
Right.
treat the water that is being utilized by the facility.
That then gets dumped back into the ground.
Go
So,
back to the gas.
more specifically, in Mundy Township, we have water service on the municipal public side that's provided by the Carrick-County Authority. We also have requirements in our zoning and land use ordinances that any industry that would potentially move in, whether it be at the mega site or anywhere else, has to connect to the public water discharge system or the sewer system. So there wouldn't be on-site discharge of any water that was taken in and used in terms of any potential project that could be approved there. Those are strict regulations that we absolutely have the legal authority to apply and do. They're on the books today for everything from Meijer, Costco, gas stations, even new housing developments coming in. There are means by which we require them to connect to the public sewer system for any wastewater discharge. So that's from residential through industry.
Yeah,
Go back to that gas tax.
Sure.
You're moving 6 cents, like, per gallon.
No.
Sales tax, 6% sales.
6%, yeah.
And you're adding to 15 or 20.
20.
And you're saying that almost equals out. I mean, for most of us consumers, that doesn't equal out.
Yeah, let me just,
Math breaks.
yeah. Let me just be a bit more specific. It's not 6 cents that we removed, it's 6%. So,
6 cents on
6%,
For $10.
15 cents on down.
well, 6% of $10 is 60 cents. So, I mean, if you're saying like, what's the rough, what's the rough break even? The rough break even, I'm doing the math, I think it's like 320, 330 about. I think it's 330 is the rough break
So the
even.
41 cent tax, that tax, that goes up, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That makes it $1.50 on his $10 equation instead of 61 cents. To answer your question,
No,
that's triple.
because the sales tax.
That's 2/3 higher.
Not a- So the gas tax is a per gallon. Sales tax is a percentage. So we're taking a percentage away and adding it per gallon.
That's
And
2/3
that's
higher,
how we-
not equal.
Yeah.
I guess
Thank
my
you.
question is kind of stemming back to the wastewater possibility of a mega site or a large industrial use in our area. I guess, what is the drain commission part in a planning phase for this wastewater? I mean, I would assume that would be a major undertaking for them to, I mean, where the current mega site is proposed, disclosed of what's could be built there. I guess to get to my point, a few years back, about 15 years ago, the Howland Drain, which mainly drains most of this site that we're talking about, had to have a special assessment put on it. Because when Windermere subdivision was built, it basically changed the flow and the discharge of the water into the Howland Drain. And a community at Reed and Linden Road during a heavy rain got completely flooded and the fire trucks had to pump out the water out of the streets. Of course, everyone who was in that Howland drainage district
Got an assessment.
got an assessment that we had to pay for 10 years. That was completely on the taxpayers.
Yep.
I mean, again, this is a what if answer, what planning stages and what will be done? I mean, because as every approval that goes through the township, even cutting down the trees and supposedly putting more land into tillable, which is a bunch of BS that Mr. Rossmessler said the other night, it changes the load of water that will be discharged, stormwater that will be discharged to the drains. I mean, Mundy Township's water, if you don't know, pretty much runs from the south to the north, towards the Sorch Creek watershed, which goes into the Flint River. So as residents and as Mundy Township people, I mean, we own a farm in Mundy Township, and, we own about 4% of the land in Mundy Township. So, I mean, yeah, it might not sound like much, but I mean, I know I have one assessment right now for 3 acres of special assessment that cost me $1,000 a year for 7 years, for a drain improvement. So, I mean, I'm looking at this, that this could cost me thousands of dollars. So, I mean, that's, and I guess we can answer that question. I know that's a big scenario.
Already
So
cost you
what I feel like
260 million.
what I feel like hear your question, so I just want to make sure I get I'm accurate. If development on the site affects what's going into the drain, could then people have additional assessments from the drain commission?
Yes.
Okay. So I try to be as straightforward as I can be, and sometimes that means if I don't know an answer, I'm going to say I don't know an answer. Okay.
You don't have a crystal ball?
I don't fully know your answer. It's not a question that I've heard before. What I do know is that the office of the drain commissioner has had discussions on the project, and I can say if I were sitting in the drain commissioner's shoes, that is a thing that I would want covered by any development, so that I didn't put it on the properties, because I wouldn't. My parents live on the drain, right? They're in Middle Township. They don't like putting assessments on people. Nobody likes putting assessments on people. So if I were in the drain commissioner's shoes, I could say, well, if you're going to do this development, we need any drain infrastructure upgrades that might be necessary to be paid as part of it, as opposed to putting it on the full watershed, right? But I can't answer your question because I haven't had that conversation with you.
Well, I appreciate your honesty. I guess just one quick follow-up, if I could. Our drain commissioner, Mr. Jeff Wright, is basically on the Kirigani Water Authority board also as the chairman, so that is a conflict of interest. They stand to make money for a large project coming in to get their pipe at max capacity. So my main concern is that they're not really going to care about all of our residents in Mundy Township on if our backyard floods 10 years down the road after this project goes in, or if my farmland floods. They're looking forward to make the money and get their pipe at full capacity.
I mean, Kirigani is not a for-profit entity. It's a public entity. So I mean,
What's a public entity?
there's no investors that they can send money to, right? So, I mean, I understand the concern, right? I would want so is he going to, how is that gonna affect his decision-making process? Ultimately, the drain commissioner gets elected by people, right? It's, I think he doesn't get chosen by the Carroll County Board, right? He gets chosen by voters. So I think it would be rational for the drain commissioner to care about whether or not he's assessing people. But I hear your concern. You know, it's a reasonable concern to not want to get assessed within a drainage district for stuff that you're not responsible for. I mean, that's a very reasonable concern. And, you know, having heard it today, it's a conversation I'm going to go back and have with the drainage commissioner.
Thank you for your time.
So if I can add some context onto that, Senator's absolutely right. The only one who can answer that question really is the Drain Commissioner's Office. And surface water management and water and wastewater services are two completely separate divisions, right? And KWA, to the Senator's point, is a nonprofit. Their operating expenses, or their rates and what they charge users is all based on the operations of the entity. There's no profit that's generated. The same thing goes for us on the local level. Water and sewer rates for the commodities themselves, the water and the wastewater, by law have to be based on the cost of the commodity delivery and treatment. On the surface water side of the drainage question, I promise you the scrutiny, the process, and the procedures that were in place for surface water management, including permitting, when that subdivision you referenced was built versus what's in place today, are very, very, very different. And the scrutiny is magnified several times because the state is ultimately the enforcing entity for if there are any violations of surface water management practices and laws. And they hold the Drain Commissioner's Office accountable for that by way of fees and fines. And they can hold the locals accountable for that as well. And if you want a really great example, when LaFontaine and Costco were built, go drive by there, you see the size of those ponds. Those are an example of what surface water management practices and principles are today versus when that subdivision was built, because you don't see any ponds throughout that subdivision, right? And those are all based on engineering principles and standards for metering to make sure that that water is held on site and is able to flow out and meet the capacity capabilities of the drain downstream.
Thank you.
Yes.
Make it safe. Gordon Incorporated, a big place in New Rapids, pulled out. The state of Michigan is suing them for $23.6 million for the cost of developing 270 acres of land. Who are we going after for developing 13,500 acres of land?
Good question. I like it.
So your question is, so
Grandpa don't care a shit.
let me explain what's happening over in Big Rapids. So in Big Rapids, there was a development that was going to be underway with a company called Goshen, concerning battery technology. There was an award made, not necessarily all that to Goshen. Of that award, I gotta make sure I'm gonna try to make sure I get the numbers right. I feel like $50 million went out. Half of it, about 26 million, I think, was to the right place, which is roughly the equivalent of the Flint Genesee Economic Alliance, but for the west side of the state. And then I believe it's like just up under $24 million went to Goshen. And then there was an additional amount of money that was slotted for Goshen that they had to meet certain benchmarks to get. Last week, the MEPC notified Goshen that they had not been meeting the benchmarks that were set in the agreement there. And as such, all of the award was being rescinded. So there's a significant amount of dollars, I think it was $120 million, that had not gone out the door. that was, ended. The right place, my understanding, has made no expenditures, and those $26 million are coming back. And then MEDC is going to be seeking repayment of what I believe is $24 million from Goshen. So, that is all to say, there was an agreement with MEDC and that company. The company was not meeting the milestones, and so MEDC terminated the agreement and seeking repayment of the dollars that had been awarded. When it comes to this Savings or Western Digital, I guess it was Savings was one of Western Digital. So when it comes to Savings, there was an agreement, like an MOU, memorandum of understanding. They had not reached a full agreement yet because Sandus was waiting on approval from the CHIPS Act office. So there was no commitment on dollars to Sandus, and so there's nothing to seek repayment on. Sandus did not get an award, did not get any money. So the dollars that are available or that have been made available associated with Money Township were awarded to the Flint and Genesee Economic Alliance to assemble the site. And those dollars have been utilized to purchase the site and get it prepped for development. And that is it could be a company like Sandus, could be another semiconductor company. There's no identified end user at this point. They were hoping it was going to be Sandus, but it never got to the point where the full agreement was reached with Sandus.
So they said that we're gonna build this building, clear the area. We spent, what, $25–30 million so far? And you say, oh, we don't want to. Where are these people from, by the way?
Sandus?
China?
Sandus is an American company.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Well, Sandus didn't get any dollars from the state of Michigan. So the proposal out there, well, I talk about what's going on with assembling these large sites. What has become as we're going forward, if the United States wants to make investments in chip manufacturing, which is also known as semiconductor manufacturing, these type of investments require large sites. So if you're talking about Intel down in Ohio, you're talking about Micron in New York, they're talking about these sites, these manufacturing facilities are 1,000 acres plus. So the question that has been put forward is, does Michigan want to bring in this next wave of manufacturing? Is that something that we want to have in Michigan?
Where's the reports from them local areas?
And I think people can legitimately have different opinions on that. If we want to have high-tech manufacturing, then you need large sites in order to have those developments. So that's why in different places you have those sites being brought forward, because when we hear announcements about Kentucky or Tennessee or Ohio or New York or Arizona, they've done the work. Where Michigan previously hasn't done the work to put together ready to develop sites. And so that's why you see that assembly taking place. And I understand some folks might have the opinion that we don't want any more manufacturing. But if you want to get that next wave of manufacturing, you do need those.
Justify and destroy. Because other states destroyed theirs.
How they pick this beautiful rural community to destroy with a factory or whatever it's going to be. But I also don't understand, why are we moving forward? If it's the most wonderful place in the world, why doesn't anybody want to come here? Why do we gotta pay them to come here? We spent about $250 million buying up land and destroying the community. Pitting neighbor against neighbor, for no reason whatsoever. Why are they still tearing houses down? Why are they tearing trees down? If there was a manufacturer, there was something going in there, I can understand. But why are we destroying everything? And how long is it gonna take to recoup all that money? Especially when, like the last place, Sandus, which didn't exist. I mean, we were told consistently there was nobody. And then all of a sudden there's been a year of Sandus. But they were gonna give them, what, 50 years of not paying any taxes or anything? How is that gonna help our community? What are we gonna get?
So I heard like a series of questions, so I want to like break down and maybe repeat them to you and make sure I got the questions right before I go ahead, if that's all right. So I think first I heard why Muddy Township and Genesee County. I heard why did it fall through? If this is and then I also heard a question about taxes. Well, why do a tax rate? So, first, what is appealing about this site in Muddy Township? Number one, it's large, 1,000+ acres. Number two, it's very short distance between two interstates. So you have 5 exits within a few minutes. I-69, I-75, US 23. 3, you're within less than an hour of 3 R1 research universities. University of Michigan, Michigan State University, and Wayne State University. Best water access in the country because of the Carrick County pipeline. And good electrical connection. So it's got infrastructure, access to talent, and access to water. That's why this site.
Access to a fresh water.
Why did the Sandus investment fall through?
No, not why did it fall through.
We said, why did they want to come here?
Why?
So,
Why, since it did fall through, why are we pushing to continue to live?
I think we're connected question. Sandus, when they ended their interest in working at this site, what they communicated is the national economic situation was such that they were not going to make any investments in the United States. Now, why is this a continued interest? It's because it's felt that that's a temporary situation. We're not going to be in a period of economic uncertainty forever, right? Stuff flows, goes up and goes down. And so, as manufacturing continues to evolve, like there's going to be periods in which companies are making investments, when we are going to be making investments in semiconductors, and there's a desire to have the site ready for that time. Now, when it comes to tax structure, number one, I think everybody should be paying taxes, including companies that come here. As I understand it, I don't know all the conversations that have occurred between the local units of government and the company. But what has been explained to me is that the structure of the agreement they were working on was such that the company would have what they call, when I worked at DNR, we called it PILT. They have a slightly different acronym at the local level, but it's a payment in lieu of tax. So they set up a agreement to pay a certain flat amount of dollars to the various local units that they're in. And they do that with an agreement on the tax side to, with what they call Renaissance on the ad valorem tax. So, as I understand it, why would anybody want to have an agreement like that? Why would you want to pay in lieu of tax instead of ad valorem tax for a company or a community? If you negotiate, then that means the company can predict what their cost is, and the local unit can predict what its revenue is, as opposed to it going up and down through economic, how quickly they build out the site, economic fluctuations and whatnot. But that requires the local units of government, county, school, well, schools, but county, townships should negotiate a good agreement as part of it. So that's, I'm trying to answer, why potentially you would have an agreement for that situation. I have not seen what the potential agreement was between the locals and Sandus, if there was one, I'm not sure. I know the conversations had begun, but I don't think since there was nothing in place, no agreement in place for the development, I don't know that they came to an agreement about that.
Can I add some context?
Yes.
So your question was framed in the manner of why would we want businesses to come here if they're not going to pay taxes? And I'm going to answer that from a very technical perspective as a municipal administrator working for Mundy Township. In the Sandisk example, the memorandum of understanding, the letter of understanding that was reported on when Sandisk announced or informed the state that they were no longer considering this site, they were asking for a couple different tax incentives at the local level. One of those is called a Renaissance zone, the other is called a PA 198 abatement, or what would be a temporary reduction in taxable values on a piece of property. Whether you like it or not, these are tools that exist in state statute that property owners can ask permission to use. But they do require local approval. And in Mundy Township, as a very local example, we have used those tools in the past. The Hyatt Place Hotel, for example, had what's referred to as a commercial rehabilitation district tax abatement placed on it. So when that hotel was built, it actually had a 5-year 50% reduction in the property values. We've used them in the past for industry on Taylor Drive as well. There's a business at the back of Taylor Drive used to be called Creative Home. When they expanded their operations, the township actually gave them that time almost a 10-year 50% reduction in those taxable values. They're tools that are designed to, just as the senator said, give a property owner predictability on what those tax rates are going to be, not eliminate them. Renaissance zones are a little different than a PA 198 or a commercial rehab district example, because by statute, if you read the letter of the law, a Renaissance zone does effectively eliminate property taxes, except for a few key instances, including education, debt mills, and some other public services like libraries, intermediate school districts, airports, etc. But those, again, have to be approved at a local level. And when I say local level, I'm talking about the township board. And the Renaissance zone also requires county commission approval. And as part of that, you would effectively have those local units considering not an elimination of taxes, but what you might call an alternative tax. So rather than a property tax bill that was incumbent on what those values were and how those changed from year to year to year, they would negotiate a structure for the actual amount of money they're paying on an annual basis. so that they can build out into their operating horizon what their cost of operating and doing business at this facility is. So on one hand, is it fair to say it's an elimination or reduction of taxes? Well, yeah, there's no way around that. That's what the statute says. But the other is the local unit, any local unit in their right mind is not saying, yeah, we'll let you pay no taxes. They're negotiating what a defined alternative amount is so that they too have predictability. And I can tell you in the SanDisk instance, based on the letter of agreement that's been reported on, SanDisk was willing to pay Mundy Township an annual alternative tax revenue of $10 million a year.
Pissed off a
That's
local
a
farmer,
significant amount
way to
of
go.
taxes. There's no way around that. So saying that it's an elimination of taxes isn't entirely true. And just by means of comparison, I'm not a board member, so I have the easy job. I get to talk about things and not take a vote. But a local board member in Mundy Township, for example, we're going through our budget process right now. Our general fund operating budget from last year to this year ranges from about $8 million to $8.5 million a year. So when you have a single property owner that's saying we're willing to pay $10 million a year in property taxes, and they consider this Renaissance zone, that's something that is incumbent on them in their roles and with their fiduciary responsibility by law to consider. They don't have to grant it, but they absolutely, for an application is received, they have to consider it and weigh those challenges, costs, and benefits and make a decision. It's not to say it would be approved, but that I just want to address the framing and that misnomer of the question of why would we want businesses to come here if they're not going to pay taxes. I have not seen an instance where a business, whether it be a small mom and shop or a mega site size comparison, has ever come to Mundy Township and said, we want zero property taxes, because by law it's just not possible. Does that help you understand?
I'm going to sidetrack a little bit because I just got a good news.
Hold on. Unconfirmed, but I'm confirming right now.
Oh.
So.
Well, I'll just say, last session I worked very hard on a package of bills. Back in the 90s, there was a change in employee benefits for state employees and our corrections officers. So folks who work in our state prisons lost their retirement, lost a pension, and we worked very hard last year to push across bills to restore retirement benefits for our corrections officers. And at the end of the year, it never got transmitted to the governor despite having votes in both chambers. And there's a lawsuit about the requirement amongst them and some other bills that did not get sent to the governor to be sent to the governor. And I think they might be in the process of being transmitted to the governor today. And so I'm very, very happy that we might be able to get those bills to restore those retirement benefits.
I have a question.
Mark hasn't asked anything yet.
Thank you. It's just a question of the state. You're talking about having this thing ready and everybody getting excited about it. You want you're excited, everybody's excited about bringing business. Go down Hill Road, we can't keep up with what we've got now, Grandland Road, look at our ditch. You guys can't keep up with the expansion you have and you're encouraging more. And then you come to us after we do it. Why don't we have this discussion before? That's my point.
I think you just made an exceptionally intelligent point. And, I agree wholeheartedly that we need to engage the entire community in the conversation at the start. That didn't happen. And, to the extent that I can take responsibility, I will take responsibility. But I think we have an opportunity to rectify that mistake. And the opportunity, really part of it is right here, by asking each of you, you know, what your opinion is. We know, about the fear of new assessments on farms. We know about the fear of contamination with our environment, because you have well water. We know about all the fears that are out there. I want to do what we can to address those fears, number one, because the question was asked earlier, why are we still looking at developing this site? My response is, you know, this project had a nickname, Project GRIT. GRIT is an acronym that stands for Genesee Regional Impact and Transformation. We need to transform Genesee County. In order to get to a lot of this dream and a lot of this vision that's in this book, then we need to transform Genesee County. We need to build better roads and infrastructure. So, because you're right, we're not ready for it now. We have a lot of work to do to get ready for it.
Let's go in sequence.
And it has to go in sequence, yes.
Well, I got a question
I
for you.
appreciate that. So, stepping back,
Still can't
this is
get an
not
answer. He
the
had
first
his hand up
conversation
for
I had
fucking
on
10
this.
minutes.
And I did not preface everything I
In
said
that little
here,
book,
but I've done
do you
it
think the
previous.
dreams of every Genesee County citizen is
Number
wrote
one,
down?
I
And
have-
every landowner in Genesee County has been
And
considered?
I do not sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. I have signed my own sign them, because I think I need to be able to talk to people about what I know, and hear, and have honest conversations back and forth. So I've had, I think it was over a year and a half ago, a conversation in Sports Creek where we talked about this. And I communicated what I knew at that time, and I told people in that room, I don't know what the company is, but I believe they are pursuing a semiconductor manufacturer. And we talked about what that means and what have you. 100%, I do think more communication needs to take place, but I've had people call my office and have one-on-one conversations where we talk about things, and if I know it, I have conversations about the things that I know. Why, I appreciate you coming back to it, like, why do I care about this type of thing? I have a 3-year-old son, and I have an 8-year-old daughter. I want them to be able to live in this community and have a future. I was born in 1985, and what I was born into is different than what I am in today. And there's much less opportunity here when I was born than from when I was born. And I want to change that trajectory of the community. When you bring $60 billion into a community, you're not just bringing economic transformation for that community, you're bringing economic transformation for the state. What is it that I'm thinking about is I want my kids, our kids, to have economic opportunity here in our community. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Now, I think I'm told I have to go on. If you guys want to have a conversation,
I got one
with
more
me,
question that you don't want to have.
call me. Listen, I may not have the conversation immediately because, we all have our jobs and we gotta do specific things. But if people want to call and have a conversation about a concern that they have, questions that they have, some feedback they want to provide me, I have those conversations. I'll call you on the phone, I'll meet with you in Lansing, I can meet with you here in Genesee County. I am Homer Green. Thank you, and I'll turn over to Dr. Brown.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Hey,
And in closing, I
won't
want to
answer our questions about the water treatment. Go figure.
One of the ladies back here about a panel session that's coming up on November the 13th.
Junk.
My
We need more
community
people
college
here.
is hosting this. It's called,
They don't want to answer more questions about the water. Josh has had his hand up.
Arm's too tired.
Yeah, arm's tired. We gotta switch hands. Had literally had it up for 20 minutes and won't ask us just because we asked one. Because I want to know what you're doing to treat the water. That's all I care about.
So I want to hear all of your voices. I want all of those concerns to be, clearly delineated is to figure out how to get past the conflict and moving forward with something positive for Pleasant County. Right now, we have a lot of conflict going on.
We gotta make sure the water's safe,
You
man.
can't resolve conflict unless you have those constructive conversations.
But you won't even answer a question.
So, November 13th at 7 o'clock, at Ballinger Fieldhouse. I hope to see all of you there. Thank you.
Yeah, can we answer questions there? I am now. I just not heard. Yeah, clue me in. Hold on one second. I gotta kill these lives, guys, because obviously these fucking jackwagons ain't gonna answer nothing. Beat around the bush.